Sam Cargill.
Here.
Paul Fatabeen.
Here.
Michael Hurley. Eric Sundman.
Okay. Will you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I'd also like to ask that you remain standing for a moment of silence. Tricia Pitko is a member of the Board of Education. Her grandmother passed away, and Jason Lee, who's a candidate for consideration for the Holland Hill Building Committee, called, and he won't be here tonight because his father-in-law passed away suddenly. So if we could all just observe a moment of silence in memory of those two people. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on the agenda tonight is to consider and act upon the minutes of the regular meeting held on January 25th, 2016. May I have a motion to approve? Representative Dean, seconded by Representative Zezima. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Representative Lee abstains. Item passes. Item number 3, to hear, consider, and act upon the following appointment to the Greater Bridgeport Transit Authority as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Michael Mears, Republican, 44 Bay Edge Court, term November 2012 to 2016, to fill the vacancy created by the resignation of Sefram Kudis. Moved by, did I say that? I destroyed that, I'm sorry. Representative McCarthy, seconded by Representative McCullough. Any discussion? Seeing none, anybody from the public who wishes to address this item? Back to the body. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Item passes. Congratulations, Mr. Mears. Thank you for your service. Item number 4, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Resolved that the Town of Fairfield establish the Holland Hill School Building Committee, authorize the preparation of schematic drawings and outline specifications for the project, and authorize the Board of Education to file an application for a school building grant. Moved by Representative McCarthy, seconded by Representative Garskoff. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, anyone from the public wish to address this item? Back to the body. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Item passes. Congratulations, Holland Hill. Item number 5, to hear, consider, and act upon the following appointments to the Holland Hill School Building Committee as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Harry R. Ackley, Republican, 25 Wagon Hill Road. Jason Lee, Republican, 245 Sunny Ridge Avenue. And Thomas Quinn, Democrat, 88 Merrow Street. Moved by Representative Hochberg, seconded by Representative Vergara. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, any comments from the public?
Hi, Philip Dwyer, Chairman of the Board of Education. The original concept behind all of the names that were presented to you, although I'm only
Chairman Dwyer, you need to speak about the 3 people, not the process.
speaking about. Turn on the microphone, please. Turn on the microphone.
I'm only supposed to talk about the individuals.
Yes.
Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Item passes unanimously. Congratulations. To hear, item number 6, to hear, consider, and act upon the following appointment to the Holland Hill School Building Committee as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Nicholas A. Asa, Republican, 253 Ruane Street. Moved by Representative McCarthy, seconded by Representative Way. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, any comments from the public? Back to the body. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Representative Georgiadis. Oh, I'm sorry, and Representative Wackerman voted no. I'm sorry. Gail. Okay, you guys, you have to put your hands up and leave them up till I call your name. All right, thank you. Item passes. Congratulations, Nick. Item number 7, to hear, consider, and act upon the following appointments to the Holland Hills School Building Committee as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Thomas Dabrowski, Democrat, 131 Fairfield Place. Giuseppe Michelangelo, unaffiliated, 196 Figler Avenue. Moved by Representative McDermott, seconded by Representative Gerber. Is there any discussion on this item? Representative Ambrose.
Peter Ambrose, District 1. I have a problem with his appointment, and the problem I have is simply I believe that the charter does not allow for the appointment of an officer to this committee. 3.1C specifically states that no person shall be eligible to hold any appointed town office, including membership, on any permanent appointed board or commission who is at the same time an elected RTM member or elected or appointed town officer. Webster's Dictionary, it simply states the definition of an officer: a person appointed or elected to some position of responsibility or authority in some organization. I find it difficult to object to this particular item because I'm very fond of the competency of both Joe Michelangelo and Tom Dabrowski. But I think the law is the law. And if we're going to vary to allow Tom and Joe to get on this commission through this process, then I think we're bending the law, and I don't think we should do that. I would suggest that perhaps there's a way that they can serve, because I think their talents are remarkable. And I think perhaps they could serve as ex officio members. But I think to ignore the charter and to allow this to happen would not be in the interest of our town. So for that reason, I'm going to object to their appointments.
Any further discussion? Representative Pierce.
Phil Pierce, District 4. I have to disagree with Representative Ambrose's interpretation of the charter. The words he just read don't support the interpretation he just gave you. He said permanent board or commission. A temporary building committee is not a permanent board or commission within the scope of this charter provision. Additionally, the charter defines what are town offices, and while the director of DPW, or the director of Public Works, is in that section of the charter, 9.1, the chief of staff is not in that section, so that can't be a basis either. We have two qualified, willing volunteers in front of us, both with a connection to the Holland Hill building, or the Holland Hill community, so I'm going to be supporting these. And I'd like also the town attorney to weigh in, because I'm aware that he rendered a legal opinion which clarifies that there is in fact no issue with this under the charter. Through you, Madam Moderator.
Yes, Attorney Lesser.
In this case, there is no legal prohibition against either of the gentlemen serving. And I think, with all due respect to my esteemed colleague, Peter, you have to start, never mind with the dictionary, you have to start with the charter. The charter specifically just defines what a town office is. Town office means any position in town government which is described by this charter, except membership on the representative town meeting. A town officer means an individual elected or appointed to a town office. So you have to start with the position that Joe Michelangelo is a town officer because he is mentioned in the charter. I don't believe Tom Dabrowski is. However, it's not what those people are, not their status. It's the status of the body to which they're being appointed. That is a temporary building committee. It's not a town office. Consequently, the charter does not prohibit them from serving. There's one further step that you have to go, I think, in looking at this in this context. the charge in this matter, the charge which the Board of Selectmen gave to the building committee, which I understand it gives to all building committees, is to follow the guidelines that are set forth in the 1990 guidelines for building committees and also the 2007 revision to those. And there's no prohibition in those guidelines against either of these people serving. So in my view, there is no legal prohibition that would stop them from serving. If anyone has questions, I'll answer them.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to discuss this item? Representative McCarthy? Oh, no, if you don't, that's fine. So is that a no? So you're good, Tom? Representative Bateson?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ed Bateson, District 1. I've thought about this over the course of the weekend. I think Joe brings a lot to the table. And parts of me wants to get him at the table and not get caught up in this. But one thing that I thought of that troubles me, a lot of times when it comes to these building committees, we use in-kind services or like-kind services from the DPW. Let's say DPW did something wrong, and Joe was a voting member of the commission, and I'm another committee member. That would impact how I handled that matter if the director of that department was sitting at the table and I wanted to reprimand the work, or I was unhappy with the work that had taken place. Is that a conflict of interest legally? I'm not a lawyer, I don't know, but it would affect my way of thinking sitting in that committee. And that causes me concern. So for that reason, I would not be supporting Joe. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address this item? I have a couple. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Tetro.
Just one clarification on the process, if I could, Madam Moderator. One is that this body's already approved 3 members for this committee. So that means the committee can go forward and the school project can start. I want to make sure the Holland Hill parents all know that. All right. Second, the role of this body is to review and approve members of the building committees. You don't have to have cause or any reason. So we can listen to the town attorney and say that the charter says this is okay. If this body still isn't comfortable with that for a number of reasons, including what Representative Bateson just said, you're perfectly within your rights not to support those 2 folks. That's the role of this body, is to prove that beyond that. So it's a function of the body making up your decision as to what you want to do. You don't need a charter provision to do that. The charter says it's okay, state statute says it's okay, or other building guidelines say it's okay. It's up to this body to make up your mind. That's all.
Thank you. Just based on that, I had a couple of things I wanted to add, so I was going to ask our deputy moderator to please come to the mic so I can do that as a representative.
Representative Iacono.
Thank you. Pamela Iacono, District 8. I, too, will be voting against this motion, and not because of the 2 gentlemen involved. I think they're both fine, upstanding citizens who have given back a lot to this town. I certainly think Mr. Michelangelo is well qualified. However, for the reasons that Representative Bateson outlined, I think there is a potential for a conflict, and he might not recognize that he could be putting himself in a difficult position. You got in your packet materials that spoke about the guidelines from the state regarding building committees, and over again you'll see in bold print, and it says be mindful of putting somebody on a committee who may have a conflict. For me personally, just thinking that you may have to recuse yourself on something is a reason to not move forward with that. Why put somebody in that particular position? Regarding Mr. Dabrowski, again, I think he's done tremendous work for the town of Fairfield in his volunteer service. However, currently over at Town Hall, we don't have an IT director. We don't have a purchasing director. We don't have an HR director. I have a hard time knowing that the discussions around the Board of Selectmen meetings were about appointing people to this building committee that had flexibility for meeting times. And I have a hard time appointing town employees on town time to meet during the building committee when there's an urgent need to get this up and running, and yet we're down 3 major staff members in town hall. As you can see, we have 2, not 1, but 2 supplemental agenda items tonight. Those are things that fell through the cracks that we had to add on. I'm just not comfortable at this particular point looking at taxpayers and representatives that I serve and telling them that I okayed town employees leaving town time to do a volunteer job, even though both of them are very well qualified, great people. So I will be voting no.
Anyone else like to speak to this? Seeing none, any members of the public? You?
You went to the public reference after. Robert's rules, it's not allowed.
I didn't see him.
Oh, okay.
Please.
And again, just to clarify one of the points that was made, again, this body can use any criteria they want, but I want you assured that both Mr. Michelangelo and Mr. Dabrowski work well more than 40 hours a week, and if any of that time they took here for the next few months, when they met during the day, it would be made up at other hours. Second, after that time, the building committee will be meeting in the evening. Again, you can use any criteria you want. I just wanted to clarify that that's not necessarily a limiting factor on these 2 gentlemen.
Any other members of the body? Representative McCarthy.
This time for real. This on? All right. Just want to dovetail. A couple things have been said. I'd be thrilled to have Mr. Michelangelo. Excuse me? Why, thank you. Tom McCarthy, District 7. 3, 4, 5. I'm thrilled to have Joe Michelangelo and Tom Dabrowski serve in this committee. As I hinted in subcommittee, I was looking for a way to make that happen. I would be comfortable with them serving ex officio because I think, as Representative Ambrose said, in spirit we do have a conflict. And I understand I don't have to offer my reason. I want to make it clear, my reason, I have no reservations about either of these 2 gentlemen. My only reservation is I'm not thoroughly comfortable that we don't have a conflict. The principle, as written in the charter, is clear about separation of duties and avoiding the potential of even the appearance of conflict, and that's where I can't get comfortable with unless they were serving on an ex officio basis. And we floated that in subcommittee, and the sense we had that Mr. Michelangelo said he would not be interested in doing that. So I will have to vote no.
All right. So we're going to vote on this now, and we're going to do a roll call vote.
Pete Ambrose? No. Ed Bateson? No. Mary McCullough? No. Keith Varian? Yes. Bill Gerber? Yes. Tim Lynch?
Yes.
Eric Newman?
Yes.
Cindy Perham?
Yes.
Heather Dean?
Yes.
Alex Durrell?
Yes.
Robin Orris?
No.
Julie Gottlieb?
Yes.
Jen Hochberg?
Yes.
Phil Pierce?
Yes.
Liz Esma?
Yes.
Josh Garskoff?
No.
Ruth Smay?
Yes.
Carol Way?
No.
Shay Wolk?
Yes.
Matt Ambrose?
Yes.
Hannah Gale?
Yes.
Ray Newberger?
No.
Janice Solomon?
Yes.
Tom McCarthy?
No.
Mark McDermott?
Yes.
Jill Vergara?
Yes.
Karen Wackerman?
Yes.
Hank Ferentz?
No.
Pamela Iacono?
No.
Christine Messina?
No.
Peter Tallman?
No.
Drew Georgiadis?
Yes.
Ken Lee?
Yes.
Bill Perugini?
No.
Sam Cargill?
No.
Paul Fattabine?
No.
Michael Hurley.
All right, the item passes 21 in favor, 16 opposed.
Item number 8, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the bond resolution entitled, "A Resolution Appropriating $1,240,000 for costs associated with the expansion and renovation of Holland Hill School and authorizing the issuance of bonds and finance of such appropriation be and hereby is approved." Moved by Representative Dean, seconded by Representative Newberger. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, any comments from the public? Back to the body. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Item passes unanimously. Item number 9, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Resolved that the Town of Fairfield establish the Fairfield Woods Middle School Roof Building Committee, authorize the preparation of schematic drawings and outline specifications for the project, and authorize the Board of Education to file an application for a school building grant. Moved by Representative Orris, seconded by Representative Bateson. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, any comments from the public? Back to the body. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Item passes. Item number 10, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the bond resolution entitled, "A Resolution Appropriating $3 million for the costs of replacing the roof at Fairfield Woods Middle School and authorizing issuance of such bonds to finance such appropriation be and hereby is approved." Moved by Representative Vergara, seconded by Representative Ambrose. Any discussion on this item? Any members from the public? Back to the body. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Item passes. Item number 11, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the bond resolution entitled, a resolution appropriating $125,000 for the costs of certain non-reoccurring capital project and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation be and hereby is approved. May I have a motion for discussion on this item? Representative Gottlieb, seconded by Representative Bateson. I asked for discussion because during committee meetings, there were questions about whether or not this item fell into, this is for the server, the $125,000 to bond the server, met the criteria for the town's policy on binding. And I see that we have the chairman of the Board of Finance here and was wondering if, Mr. Flynn, you could address the policy and opine.
Thank you and good evening. Important to note that this item did pass my board, but it was not a unanimous decision. How to explain this? Let me put it this way. I was recently at a Bruce Springsteen concert. And we all know he's got a great band behind him. They played over 2,000 shows. He counted off a song, and the band completely screwed it up. And he laughed, he turned around and said, sometimes even the tightest band in the world screws it up. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes even the best board in the world screws it up. Because we did not follow our own policy here. And if you look at our technology bonding policy, it says all technology spending must be expended through annual budgets, with the exception of hardware and software directly associated with the expansion of current classroom space or town-owned property. Technology for replacement space or temporary space additions do not qualify for bonding and must be funded through the annual budget and/or the appropriate town funding process. In the case where the bonding of technology is allowed in new space areas, the technology expenditures will be separated from the building project and bonded over 3 years. So, although I'm very proud of our board, and I think we do have a very good board, we didn't follow our policy on this. It was a late night, and I think we screwed it up. But that's just my own personal opinion. You could have 8 other members of the Board of Finance here that have different opinions as to what they wanted to do with this item. But by definition, we didn't follow the policy. Thank you very much.
Is there any other discussion on this item? I am. Representative Garskoff.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Not to lead the moderator here. So are you looking for a motion to table this, or?
Looking for a motion to take no action.
I make a motion that we take no action on this item.
Is there a second? Excellent. Is there any comment from the public? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Flynn. Item number 12, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved, that a bond resolution entitled, "A Resolution Appropriating $2,482,677 for the costs of certain non-reoccurring capital projects and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, be and hereby is approved." And just to be clear, this is for the dump truck, the fire truck, and the security, a portion of the security infrastructure. Is there a motion to approve? Representative McCarthy, seconded by Representative Smay. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, any comments from the public? Back to the body. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Item passes unanimously. Item number 13. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the bond resolution entitled, "A Resolution Appropriating $2,068,015 for the cost of certain non-reoccurring capital projects and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, be and hereby is approved." This is for Gold Manor, Sherman Field, Golf Bunker, the Dwight Stairs, the Ludlow Boilers, the other piece of the security infrastructure, and the Cat 6 line. Is there a motion to approve? Representative McCarthy, seconded by Representative Ambrose. Is there discussion on this item? Seeing none, any members of the public? Back to the body. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Item passes. Item number 14, to hear a report from the Chairman of the Public Works and Planning Committee or his designee on the Town of Fairfield and the Fairfield Museum and History Center plans for improvement to the Fairfield's historic town green. Chairman Newberger. And just so the body knows, this is just simply an informational presentation. It's not subject to discussion or Q&A, and there is no public comment. Thank you.
Ray Newberger, District 6. The most important thing to realize about this project is that we don't have the funds yet. That was pretty much stressed during the public hearings, is that Fairfield applied for a grant, and we haven't, this project is very much in its theoretical stage. Nothing's set in stone. There's really no definitive plan. If you attended the public hearings, you would have realized that there was a bunch of ideas that were put forth that were either accepted or rejected by the public. The whole theory behind it is basically to essentially refurbish the town green and essentially address what can facilitate better operation for the green. Some of the ideas that were thrown out were to make in front of the town hall, add more greenery, to take some parking away, and basically make it, I guess, more aesthetically pleasing. During the public hearings, a lot of people took issue with that, and that particular item was tabled. They're going to leave the parking in front of Town Hall. Another potential was to add some outflow onto Penfield to help alleviate some of the congestion within Town Hall. There was a big public outcry on that particular item. People felt that it was going to add to congestion on Penfield, so that item was tabled as well. Bless you. As well as there was discussion about more parking around Byrne Mansion and St. Paul. And when I had spoken to Michael Jaley on Friday, trying to get the definitive number that he had put out during the public hearings, the town architect is still trying to compile the 5 different town public hearings to put everything forward for a new prospectus. So we're still waiting. I think maybe in the next week or two we should have something more definitive, but that's kind of where we stand right now. I think that a lot of people felt like, and I thought it was a little further along than it really was. It's still something that's very much in its infancy, and we're kind of taking it one step at a time, but that's where we stand right now. And I suppose that maybe this time next month I'll be up here with an update.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to supplemental item number 1. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the first selectman is hereby authorized on behalf of the town of Fairfield to expend up to $300,000 to fund a community development grant disaster recovery tranche 2 project entitled South Benson Stormwater Pump Station and Drainage Improvement Study. 100% of said project costs to be reimbursed by a federally funded disaster recovery community development block grant. Moved by Representative Hochberg, seconded by Representative McCarthy. Is there any discussion on this item? Anyone from the public who wishes to address this? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions. Item passes. Supplemental item number 2. To hear and consider and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the first selectman is hereby authorized on behalf of the town of Fairfield to expend up to $100,000 to fund a community development block grant disaster recovery tranche 2 project entitled Resiliency for Downtown Fairfield using green infrastructure. 100% of said project costs to be reimbursed by a federally funded disaster recovery community development block grant. Moved by Representative Ambrose, seconded by Representative Lee. Is there any discussion on this item? Any members of the public wish to address this? Sorry. Back to the body. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Item passes. Supplemental item number 3. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the first selectman is hereby authorized on behalf of the town of Fairfield to expend up to $300,000 to fund a community development block grant disaster recovery tranche 2 project entitled Pine Creek Dike Elevation Plan. 100% of said project costs to be reimbursed by a federally funded disaster recovery community development block grant. Moved by Representative McCarthy, seconded by Representative Dean. Is there any discussion on this item? Any member from the public wish to address this? Back to the body. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Item carries. Supplemental item number 4. Resolved that the bond resolution entitled Resolution Authorizing Appropriations of $30 million to refund certain of the town's outstanding bonds and authorizing the issue of refunding bonds to finance such appropriation be and hereby is approved. May I have a motion? Representative Bateson. Representative Dean seconds it. Any discussion on this item? Representative Bateson.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ed Bateson, District 1. I have an amendment to this. At the end, I'd like to insert semicolon. Such approval shall be predicated upon, start again. Such approval shall be predicated and conditional upon Board of Finance approval.
there a second? Representative McCarthy. Mr. Bateson.
Okay, I'd like to speak to the amendment. Bob Mayer's not here. He's investigating the matter right now. He has all my paperwork. Bob! I'm here. I'm presenting this now. Is there anything I need to know? I haven't even started.
You know that I love you.
Okay. Should I proceed?
I can answer the question.
Okay. All right, my question was, and why I have the amendment on the floor. This, I'm going back to last year, in my paperwork or whatever, my reasoning for this, I had asked for the prospectus. We had done one of these last year, and this was the first year, last year was the first year we did it without the Board of Finance. I have no problem with the fact that we're going to grab an interest savings on this. I don't even know what the interest savings on this one is, but I'm all in favor of that. When I looked at the prospectus of what we issued last year, I saw what looked to me as reshuffling of principal. I don't think that that's a big deal, but what it affects is the waterfall model. And the waterfall model is an integral tool that the Board of Finance uses when it comes to their debt planning scenarios. So, I'm not an expert. I just brought this to Bob's attention just before the meeting. My feeling is if interest savings one thing, I feel that this body is competent to just take that savings and then it doesn't need to go anywhere else. If we're starting to, when it comes to principal payments throughout a 5-year window or a 7-year window, that affects the waterfall model. Then I think it needs to go back to the Board of Finance so that they're aware that there's changes being made to the waterfall model. So that's the reason for the amendment. I guess Bob was on the phone with Phoenix Advisors or whoever.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. It's an excellent question, and I learned something. When the bonds are called, that means we're paying the bonds off in advance, so we're not violating or changing the terms that are in the bonds that the Board of Finance has voted on when the bonds are to be issued. When the repayment schedule is set, just got off the phone with Matt Sprendel. He says this town is one of the few towns, the only town that has such sophisticated waterfall. And the combination, that when he sets the payment schedule, it's partially what the purchaser is interested in and partially smoothing out the water schedule. Now the reason I really appreciate this question is one of the things that if you look at didn't do a water schedule for this particular non-recurring because we're looking at changing some of the ways we repay our bans. But if you look, based upon the reason we're doing that is the ban payment for fiscal year 17 is like $440,000. The ban payment for fiscal year 18 is $2 million something. So, now, even though I wasn't involved last time in drafting, the repayment schedule, based upon my conversation with Matt, I think that'd be something that we'd probably look at to try to maybe use the savings early so we don't jump next year with an additional $2 million payment. So that's, I think, the full answer.
Representative Bateson, you still have the floor.
Okay, now you heard that. Okay, exactly. That's why I think when that needs to go back to the Board of Finance, because now it's going into an area that personally I'm uncomfortable with. If I'm saving $1.2 million in interest, I'm all for that. Now I talked to the Board of Finance's chairman. They can get this on their agenda for Thursday and discuss it. That's why the reason for my amendment. I don't want to hold it up, but if it's dealing with principal in the waterfall, I really think it needs to go back to them. That's where I am on this. So, I mean, Madam Moderator, through you, if the Board of Finance, if the chairman can entertain and opine if he's comfortable with this on Thursday, and maybe address whatever it is that was just said.
Okay, going in order. Number one, thanks to Representative Bateson for bringing this to my attention last Friday. As he indicated, this has not come before our board and legally does not have to come before our board. So we had no advance notice of this. In fact, I found out about this when I was distributed your paperwork. That was just an oversight. It wasn't nothing intentional. Number two, I would put this on the agenda for Thursday night so that we could vote on it as part of your amendment. Number three, if I can try to explain a little bit what Bob was trying to explain as well. I think Bob combined two different issues. The first issue, independent of this, is the way we amortize our bands. And bands are nothing more than short-term bonding. And there was, for lack of a better word, a convoluted amortization schedule that's been followed for years. What Bob is trying to put in place is a smoothing of that schedule across a number of years, so we don't have these peaks and troughs as we go about paying down our debt on the short-term bonds. Correct? Okay. Secondly, and this is directly to this issue, when he goes to refinance these bonds to take advantage of better interest rates, which is an admirable thing to do and needs to be done quickly, the question that Representative Bateson raises is, do the principal payments get changed in a material way so that when we thought we would be paying off $750,000 worth of debt this year, we're actually paying off much less this year in carrying that debt forward and paying it off in future years, i.e. kicking the can down the road.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa, absolutely. Are we paying off more now and not having those interest payments? Which, does that fundamentally change the bonds that the Board of Finance approved a number of years ago? It's arguable, maybe. But certainly to Representative Bateson's point, I would say for our board, we would like to understand how that does impact our water flow model and our cash flow. Does that help in any way, shape, or form? And Mrs. Moderator, are there any questions for me?
Representative Gerber.
Bill Gerber, District 2, Madam Moderator, through you to the Chairman of the Board of Finance. Should this be something that we do every time we refinance bonds? I mean, we're lucky this time that you've got a meeting coming up, but I recall a conversation last year that we didn't want to miss when interest rates fell. We wanted to have some flexibility to be able to refinance at a moment's notice if rates fell. So, yeah.
Thank you for the question. There's a legal aspect to your question, which I think Mr. Lesser handled last year, which is, do you have to come back before us? No, you don't. Do I think it's good practice if it's reasonable, if time allows? Yeah, I do. I do, because to Mr. Bateson's point, we monitor it very closely, and we care very much about it. So legally, do you have to? No. Do I think it's prudent business practice? Yes, I do.
And Madam Moderator, to Mr. Mayor, I could have sworn I asked last year if refinancing changed the term of the bonds, and the answer was no, but I guess that's not the case, that we do change the term structure of our...
It does not necessarily change the term. I'll answer for Mr. Mayor if that's okay. So you would still be paying off the bond within 20 years. It might, however, and in this instance it may, change how much you pay back of that bond each year. So you don't get the smoothing, or maybe you do, or you thought you were paying back more up front and you're not, or you're paying back more up front than you intended when you originally did this.
So, through you to Mr. Bateson, what you're proposing is a one-off, and each time we'll revisit this. You know, we'd like to be able to have the Board of Finance approve this. We have a window here where we can do it. Bob Mayer is not objecting to that, it sounds like. Right? And next time when we refinance, if we don't, if we're trying to take advantage of low interest rates and we've got to, and make sure we get it under a window, we can vote to just approve it.
Can I address? Sure.
Yeah, to Mr. Gerber's point, I agree with that. The only, I think now that we've discussed this, I think that this is going to be on Mr. Mayor's checklist, that if he sees something going on with principal, maybe he'll go to the Board of Finance first.
If I might, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Bateson for bringing this to my attention, as well as thank this body for its consideration.
Thank you. So this is, I'm sorry, Representative Garskoff.
Thank you, Josh Garskoff, District 5. So I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but could one of you very smart people explain for me, if we're not changing the term, if it's just a matter of principal versus interest, what does that really matter? It's the same payment. What does it really matter? Can you help me with that?
Yeah, I'll just tell you what my concern is. What made me think of it in the long run, are we changing whatever these bonds are due 2027? That term has not changed. What has changed is what I think might have changed is the principal between years. That's not something we on the RTM track, but that's their tool. I know, and I've sat in 2 or 3 capital planning summits. That's what they use as their planning tool for what we're going to do. Maybe we're not going to do Gould Manor. Now, if you're taking a chunk of principal and spreading that out over 3 years, maybe that'll allow room for something else. I think that that's something that the Board of Finance and everyone else should know about, so maybe we can squeak something in. So that's why I think it should go to them, so that now then they'll have, maybe there's more of a ceiling to operate with when they're in their capital planning summit. And I know this year, perfect example, Fairfield Woods Middle School, we were supposed to do an elevator, but by chance that lucked out, that we got an extra year of life out of that. Maybe that could have been slotted up if we deferred a little bit of principal under this scenario. That's my only thinking, but I think that discussion needs to happen at the Board of Finance, not here.
Okay. I don't get it, but I'll take what you're saying, that we don't need to have the conversation here. I'll follow on the Board of Finance. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, did you want to add something to the conversation?
Yeah, a couple things. I obviously have no problem going to the Board of Finance, and we have gone to the Board of Finance, I think, every time. It didn't go to the Board of Finance this time because of the timing of when we started working on it, and the Board of Finance agendas were full, and so we just proceeded ahead. And as Mr. Flynn pointed out, it was an oversight that I did not, and I should have actually got the information to him, so at least he was aware of it. Wish I didn't know. Apologize to him for not doing that. But we have no problem. And as of right now, there is no schedule. We're still completing the documentation. We're still monitoring the interest rates, and we're still putting the package together with the underwriter. So as of now, there is no schedule as to when the new maturity dates will be. The only thing that is a certain, and it's an absolute requirement, is that the total issue cannot extend out longer than, the total new issue cannot extend out longer than the maturity dates of the old issue. And the savings as of today is about 1.2 million. That's net and gross, pretty close. I mean, net and present value.
Representative Ambrose and then Representative Way.
Peter Ambrose, District 1. Through you, Pam, to Bob, Mayor. Bob, does it not make sense to stabilize the payments so that we have an idea as to, at least we're within some certain parameters that we'll know what those principal payments are within a certain range every year? It seems from the discussion that the range of principal payments is quite variegated.
One of the documents that you got in your package, which I brought extra copies tonight, I think, explained that the town currently, and from way back when in the Flato administration somewhere, made a decision. We ban every year. We ban as bonding amortization notes. They're one-year notes. And the town issues bands every year. Those bands are, the total amount of those bands, the way they were, the payment schedules that was incorporated into the band documents was 0% was paid the first year, 0% was paid the second year, 5% the third year, 5% the fourth year, and 90% the fifth year. Now, what this does is, if you have 1 year, you have $1 million in bands. In year 5, you're paying 90% of $1 million or $900,000. If you have $5 million in bands, in year 5, you're paying 90% of $5 million, or what was that, $4.5 million? Okay? So what I've been looking at and working on, and did discuss this with Mr. Flynn a little bit, is that when we issue the bands, which are generally issued relative to non-recurring capital projects, then instead of having a 00, actually it's 0005590, instead of having that type of a payment plan, if it's a 5-year asset, you pay for it 20% a year. If it's a 10-year asset, you pay for it 10% a year. If it's a 20-year asset, you pay for it 5% a year. Now, this requires a little bit more paperwork, and a little bit more accounting to keep track of it with respect to IRS regs and arbitrage and that type of thing. But it would do exactly what you're suggesting needs to be done. It is putting us on a more stable, more reasonable, more practical type of banning issuance.
Actually, we covered a lot, but this is really only on the amendment to add this to be predicated to the Board of Finance. So I think we've covered all the discussion. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the amendment? Representative Way.
Carol Way, District 5. I just want some clarification. As I understand it, ordinarily, and I think that Mr. Mayor has made reference to this, the Board of Finance does not have to approve something of this sort, but the RTM does. So with our asking that this actually go to the Thursday meeting of the Board of Finance, does that negate our acting on this tonight? And if so, does it mean that after the Board of Finance actually deals with it, that it would come back to us next month? Or will we be voting on it tonight, but then the Board of Finance will take a look at it?
Based on the motion is seeking approval predicated on the fact that it goes back to the Board of Finance.
Okay. I just wanted that
Correct,
clarified, that we would
Representative
be
Bateson?
voting on it tonight.
We'd be voting on it tonight. If it passes tonight, if it's a yes vote, and you are in favor of the motion, our yes vote will signify you can move forward, but you have to bring this before the Board of Finance.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you.
Is that correct representation? That was my intent. Okay. On the motion. Representative Lee.
Representative Lee, District 9. So just one more clarification. Now, let's just say we pass this motion. Sounds reasonable. And it goes to the Board of Finance, and the Board of Finance says no. I'm not saying that the Board of Finance would say no. I'm just saying theoretically they could. How does that affect our approving it? Because by the charter, we approve it, it's done, they have the approval. We're sending it back to them for approval? Or, I mean, can they undo what we've already done? Because that's the part that I don't understand. And I have no issue with bringing it to you guys. I just want to understand the implications of what we're actually doing here.
The motion is subject to the approval of the Board of Finance.
So that means, okay, so,
So if they vote it down, it dies. Correct?
is that correct?
I'm not a lawyer, he is.
You made the motion,
The
so
attorney
tell me
Lesser
what your
shaking
motion
his head at
is.
me.
The motion is self-evident. I can't opine on what would happen if the Board of Finance voted it down. I would imagine that it dies. That's what I would imagine. Stanton could say that, if I'm not mistaken, the Board of Selectmen can come back and say, you know, the RTM did approve it. Therefore, it's a legal bond resolution. I mean,
But you're amending it to say subject to the approval of.
I am, but also, too, Mr. Lee brings up a point of litigation that would have to be addressed by the town attorney. If the Board of Selectmen turned around and said, you know, irregardless of what the RTM said, they did approve it.
Should I take a 2-minute recess? Do you want to figure that out, or do you?
If you think about it, the approval is contingent on something happen. If that something doesn't happen, then what you're saying is we're not giving our approval. It's probably okay. I mean, there's no question that this is in the bailiwick of this board. It's a refinance, doesn't have to go to the Board of Finance, but you are giving a conditional approval. And if that condition doesn't take place, then your approval is void, I suppose, so you're probably okay.
That's how I see it.
All right.
Can you read back, can we read back the motion? There's just. Yes, please.
At the end of the motion, there's a semicolon. Such approval shall be predicated and conditioned upon Board of Finance approval.
Okay.
So yes, I think
Yes.
what Stanton is correct. But I got to tell you guys, I really don't think that the board, I'm not going to speak for the Board of Finance, but I think all this is, the intent is to make sure that the waterfall model is secure and that any changes that are going on, they're happy with. I can't imagine this being turned down. That's just me.
Representative Walkerman.
If I may.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No,
Representative Lee, you
I hear
still
what
have
you're
the
saying, but I've heard a lot of people got up here and take a point of view that we won't want to put ourselves in that position. We've argued a lot of ridiculous points. This one is certainly in that, but I just don't like the idea that we're voting on something that we're supposed to legally decide, and then we're putting ourselves in a position where there could be a conflict. That makes me a little bit uncomfortable, so.
Did you want to address that, Representative Bateson?
No, I'm still happy with the amendment.
I have to call a point of order. I can't concentrate because there's all this chatter going on the floor. It's hard to run the floor when there's a lot of voices going on. I'm sorry. Representative Walkerman.
Karen Wackerman, District 7. This shows my ignorance about the finance aspect, but if it went to the Board of Finance, would there be a way to fix the waterfall issue and still allow refinance, or would it just be something you'd have to say no to the refinance through you, Madam Moderator?
Is that to Chairman Flynn?
Yes, I think so. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Mr. Mayor, you're the one who's going to have to manage that and respond to our, whatever our thoughts are. What are your thoughts on that? Could we adjust the principal payments in our discussions to get to the point where we get the savings that you're stating are evident and can pass this along?
We do not have a waterfall that is tied to the potentially new band payment philosophy, and I'm not certain I can do that by Thursday.
Can we, Mr. Mayor, let's put the band comment to the side. Okay, we understand what you're trying to do.
Well, I'm not
there.
talking about the waterfall. I'm not
Okay.
going to, because to have a
To the
waterfall.
waterfall related to this refinance by Thursday. Forget the ban issue. Okay, that's a separate project that you're working on. But related to this refinance, to get this lower interest rate and secure the reduction of $1.2 million in expense that you're quoting, can you update the waterfall by Thursday and If we come back and say we don't like the way the principal's due to be paid down, do we have some leverage there to change that to a way in which we are comfortable with it?
Okay, you're talking about a waterfall specific to the bonds to be called and the bonds to be issued.
Okay, we have a current waterfall model.
Correct.
Okay. Can that current waterfall model be adjusted as if we have approved the funding, the refinance that you're talking about right now, by Thursday?
No.
So Mr. Spindle can't run that waterfall with this adjustment
Well, we can.
by Thursday,
When you say with this adjustment,
as if
well,
we
first of all, I
refinanced
can't
the
totally commit. I know that everybody's all hands on deck trying to get the refi done. That's the first thing.
Okay.
So both, bond counsel and the underwriter and Mr. Spindle's office at Phoenix Advisors. But we can put in numbers in a waterfall and just run the waterfall, but it will not be a document that I would use as a management tool because it's based upon information that's probably not going to be and cash flow that's not going to be.
Why is that?
Because there's no way that we can to prepare a waterfall accurately based on what we anticipate. We have to take, because the waterfall currently is based upon 0005590. And that goes out to all the years with all the...
But Mr. Mayor, you're combining two issues.
No, because that's the waterfall. The waterfall,
I understand.
the payments for those are in there.
I understand. You're changing that. You've got a proposal in place to change the 555-9055, right? I get it.
Right.
Whatever. Those numbers don't add up. But I understand you have an analysis going forward on that, okay? That's in the future, okay? We're not voting on that.
The waterfall contains...
Let me,
I'm
please.
sorry, go ahead, I apologize.
Okay, yeah. Those adjustments, based on you smoothing that out, right? That's not before us right now. You haven't changed it right now. That's a work in process moving forward. That's a separate issue, right? In my mind, that's a separate issue.
Okay.
Totally legitimate, and I support that, okay? What I'm talking about is this item right now, which is the refinancing of these bonds that are currently before this body. You could certainly say, if these bonds were to stay as they currently are, right now, same interest rate,
with no other changes,
same
correct
pay down
statement.
period, here's what it would look like. If we do this refinance today, here's what that amortization period looks like, and here's what the rate. In fact, that analysis already has to have been done in order for you guys to come up with the fact that you saved $1.2 million.
Yeah, right.
So all
The
I'm asking
analysis
is-
on the bonds, correct.
All I'm asking is, show us the difference in the amortization period, not number of years, but how that amortization period lays out over the next 20 years between what we currently have and what we would have if we refinance the bonds. If we could do that by Thursday, we can take a look at that and understand what the impact is and make a determination and give back to this board.
Right. What I would try to do, okay, understanding that we're not looking at a perfect document, we understand that. Okay, good. Then, a very imperfect document, actually. But, that aside, what I would probably do is, I'm not even sure it makes sense, but I'd try to do a few scenarios, Schedule A, Schedule B, Schedule C, if we did this model, this model, this model, based upon what Phoenix Advisors thinks would be reasonable payback periods.
And we can have that and we can have those various scenarios to say we're comfortable with scenario A or scenario B or scenario C in terms of paying down the principal.
Right.
Right?
Right. I mean,
That works.
because we're not, if we're not going back and changing, if we're not updating the waterfall other than
All
this,
that other stuff.
other than this,
That's
then-
exactly right.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
we can probably do that.
Okay, thank you. So the answer to that question is yes. Representative Walkerman, does that answer your question? You are not allowed to have follow-up. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, I thought I'd lighten the moment, all these numbers. ahead.
I guess that leads me to ask if perhaps the motion could be changed a bit to say that we approve this and not subject to the Finance Board approving it, but, and then send it back to the Board of Finance to adjust the waterfall as they see fit, so that we retain that power to approve it without anything subject.
We already have a motion on the floor, so if you would rather not adopt this motion, you're more than welcome to vote no.
Okay. And you might want to change it.
I think that would slow,
Yes.
I wouldn't be amenable to that, because I think that would slow the process down.
Okay.
That's
We
my first
actually
take on what I just
already have a
heard.
motion on the floor, so we need to take action on
I want to
this
approve
item.
this and get approval or consideration by the Board of Finance, and then the issue's done.
Right. I really think that it's time for us to move on. We are on the motion simply to send this back to the Board of Finance, predicated on sending this back to the Board of Finance for approval. Representative Garskoff, please, on the amendment only.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think I have it now. I think I understand what we're doing. We are approving this on the condition of the Board of Finance gets to look at it in a couple of nights. And I think what I'm hearing, Mr. Flynn, is not so much that you might reject this, but that you might tweak the way it's done in order to fit it into our planning the best. Do I have that right? Okay, thank you.
Just for the record, Mr. Chairman Flynn has signified by saying yes. Okay. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to address the amendment? All those in favor of accepting the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Representative Vergara, Representative McDermott, Representative Georgiadis, Representative Perham, and Representative Wackerman. Please put your hands up if you're opposing. Thank you. Okay. Representative Gale. Abstentions. Item carries. Back to the main motion. Well, technically, we should debate whether or not we should be approving this item now that it's going to go to the Board of Finance, subject to their approval. Is there any further discussion? Any members from the public who wish to address this item? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Item passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 15, to consider and act upon any other matters presented to the, please, I know that somebody does have an item that they want to address. To consider and act upon any other matters presented to said meeting and which may be properly acted upon under the rules of the representative town meeting. Representative Hochberg.
Jennifer Hochberg, District 4. Not only I wear a hat for the RTM, I also wear a hat for the Fairfield Community Emergency Response Team, otherwise known as CERT. We are looking for a few good new members. Class starts this Saturday on March 5th, and the prime goal of the class is to learn about disaster preparedness, and there's a whole other bunch of topics. I know it's everybody's busy right now and everything, but there's more information on our town website, fairfieldct.org/CERT, C-E-R-T. And if you have any questions, the email is citizencore@optonline.net. What I will do is I will send out the information to the moderator, if that's all right, so she can send it out to the body. And this is also an opportunity for those who are at home to know about the information. So hope to see some of you, or maybe some of your family, friends, or neighbors from your districts. Thank you.
Okay, couple housekeeping items, and then I'll recognize Representative Way. Please pick up your budget book. Otherwise, these are going back to Town Hall, and they're only open from 8:30 to 4:30. Unless you asked me to pick up your book for you. And the Board of Ed budget books are here as well. Representative Way.
Carol Way, District 5. I would just like to remind people about the open house. You've already been contacted about it at the new Bigelow Center for Senior Activities. Some of you have gone there before to the open house, but I think that even if you have been there before, you need to go this year because there have been so many changes that have taken place at the old senior center. And that includes evening meetings, evening sessions, evening classes, classes on the weekends, really a move to get younger people to be part of this as well, the boomer generation. So new people, please plan on going on March 12th to that open house. And even if you have been there before, you'll see a whole new situation. The one other thing, too, there may be people in your families or others that you know from your district. Please let them know that, our program for senior and disabled tax relief is in session right now. It started February 1st, where people could come in and find out if they qualify for some help with their real estate taxes. So, sorry. I hope that you'll pass that information on as well. Okay?
Thank you. And finally, for the March meeting, can you please put all of your devices on silent when we have the meeting? Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Representative Ambrose, Representative Newberger. Thank you all very much. Have a great night.